Can you solve the Lake Bodom murders? Wind sighs through the pines. A tent zipper clicks shut. 4 teenagers laugh over the last of the cocoa. Sure, the worst thing they'll see tonight is rain on the canvas. By sunrise, 3 of them will be dead. The 4th will wake up with shattered bones, no memory, and a lifetime of whispers trailing behind him. Tonight we're rewinding to the longest, coldest night in Finnish crime history, Lake Bodom, June 1960. 64 years on, the file is still stamped open, and every Finn can point to the lake on a map and tell you where they were the first time they heard the story. We'll pace the shoreline, flip through yellowed folders, and meet suspects the courts could never quite convict. By the end, I'll ask the same question that's haunted 3 generations of detectives. Can you solve the Lake Bodom murders? Grab something warm, coffee, or something stronger, and let's start where it only makes sense to start. Espoo, just west of Helsinki, 1960. Post-war Finland's finally feeling flush. Teenagers clip transistor radios to their belts, and every long June weekend, the pine forests around Lake Bodom fill with tents, smoke from little saunas, and the smell of grilled makara sausages. Maila Imeli Björklund and Anja Tuulikki-Mäki, 15, inseparable, are practically glowing because their boyfriends, 18-year-olds Seppo Boisman and Niels Gustafsson, have borrowed a tent and 2 lukewarm beers. Picture dust tipping the lake the colour of old pennies, mosquitoes humming, the girls carving MA plus SB into soft pine with a pocket knife. They've got scratchy Beatles singles on low volume, enough chocolate to survive until sunrise, and that bulletproof optimism you only have at 15 when the sky never really gets dark. The tent closes just after midnight. The air's warm. The only sound is water licking the rocks. Nothing feels dangerous. Everything feels possible. A little before 11 the next morning, a carpenter named Esko Johansson cuts through the woods on a shortcut to the job site. He smells smoke, then spots the tent, collapsed like a broken bone. Inside, 3 bodies. Maila's been stabbed more than 30 times, clothes disturbed, body dragged just outside the canvas. Seppo and Anja lie tangled together, skulls bashed in, knife wounds across their torsos. On the grass, Niels Gustafsson, alive but barely, jaw hanging loose, skin split like overripe fruit. Blood soaks the ground. The first officer on the scene later admitted he thought bear attack until he saw the neat, straight cuts in the tent wall, clean slices made by something human. Let's unpack what the crime scene actually told investigators once they peeled their eyes away from the horror. Murder weapons never found. We know only that both a sharp blade and something blunt and heavy were used. Rocks the size of grapefruits litter the place. Any could have done the job. Tent fabric, sliced from the outside in as if someone wanted the teens trapped. Missing items, wallets, watches, a leather jacket, and oddly Niels's shoes. They turn up weeks later, stuffed under a root 500 metres away. Time of death? Coroner pins it between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. Witnesses, 2 bird watchers, saw a blonde man in a light jacket strolling calmly from the campsite around 6:05 a.m. Neither rang police until they heard the news later that day. From minute 1, the scene was a mess. Curious locals trampled footprints. A reporter lit a cigarette inside the tent, and someone walked off with Maila's diary. Chain of custody didn't exist. In 2024, we'd call it a forensic nightmare. In 1960, it was just rural policing. Niels Gustafsson spent weeks drifting in and out of hospital consciousness. When he surfaced, he had no memory of the attack. None. He remembered zipping the tent. Next thing he knew, hospital ceiling tiles. Finnish papers screamed, "Did Niels do it?" The theory was tidy, jealous fight over Maila, explosion of violence, then self-inflicted wounds to throw police off the scent. Doctors weren't buying it. Niels had a fractured jaw, severe concussion, defensive cuts on his forearms. Try stabbing yourself 30 times and knocking your own face sideways. Possible, sure, but you'd need the grace of an Olympic gymnast. Still, suspicion stuck to him like pine sap. 44 years later, detectives would dust off the rumours and haul Niels back into the spotlight. Every cold case collects a rogues gallery. Bodom's is weirder than most. 14 years old in 1960. Violent record, even by juvie standards. In 1969, he supposedly bragged to cellmates he'd done those kids at Bodom. He hanged himself before police could interrogate him properly. No physical evidence, no eyewitness. Just a jail yard confession that could be the worst kind of boasting. Hans Assmann, German-born labourer living nearby. On the morning of the murders, he turned up at Helsinki Surgical Hospital, clothes flecked with blood, under his nails what looked like dried lake mud. Doctors noted he seemed twitchy. Then he produced a dance hall alibi, claimed he'd been in a fight the night before, and the blood was from a nosebleed. Case closed on Assmann, but rumours linger because, honestly, who shows up at a hospital covered in blood right after a triple murder? The unidentified blonde man. 2 witnesses, same description. Tall, light hair, light jacket, walking away at dawn. Police never found him. Years later, a local teacher insisted she'd seen a man matching that description, washing blood from his clothes in a stream. No name, no follow-up. The random drifter theory. Finland in 1960 still had plenty of men drifting from logging camp to logging camp, carrying knives and grudges. Could have been a robbery gone sideways, except nothing of real value was taken. Watches were cheap, wallets nearly empty. Whoever it was seemed to want to hurt, not profit. Let's be kind and say Finnish police in 1960 weren't used to homicide on this scale. The lead detective, a man named Heiha, later admitted they didn't even own a Polaroid. They sketched by hand and taped labels to tree trunks. Locals wandered the site eating sandwiches. A reporter pocketed Myla's broken glasses as a souvenir. By the time lab techs arrived the next afternoon, any useful tyre track had been ground to mush. Result? No fingerprints, no clear footprints, no murder weapon. Just blood types, a B and O, and a vague sense that whoever did this knew how to vanish in a forest full of people. Decades on, Lake Bodom became Finland's Amityville. Parents used it as shorthand. Don't camp alone, remember Bodom. Bands named themselves after the lake. Horror movies filmed there. Every midsummer, someone swears they hear screams across the water. The tent pegs are gone, but the story sticks like campfire smoke in a wool sweater. Who do you think was in those woods at 5 a.m? Niels, the jealous boyfriend, a teenage psychopath, or a stranger who melted back into the pines? I read every theory, and the best ones might make it into the follow-up episode. Fast forward to 2004. Cold case detectives, now armed with DNA kits and 40 years of hindsight, reopen Bodom. They re-examine Niels's clothes stored in an evidence box. Tiny blood spatter patterns, microscopic fibres, a few drops that didn't match his own type. In March 2004, police knocked on Niels' door. He was now a 62-year-old bus driver living quietly in the suburbs. They arrested him for triple homicide. Headlines exploded. Survivor or slaughterer? Finland stopped for the trial. Prosecutors pushed a jealous rage theory. Niels saw Mela flirting with Seppo, snapped, killed everyone including his best friend, then staged injuries. They paraded blood pattern analysts, forensic psychologists, and a mannequin wearing Niels' 1960 shirt. Defense shot back. The injuries were too severe. A self-inflicted fractured jaw would have required surgical precision while concussed. They hammered on the missing murder weapon, the blonde man, the contaminated crime scene, and after 11 months, the district court acquitted Niels, citing reasonable doubt. The state paid him €44,000 compensation for the year he spent in custody. He walked out free, but the whispers followed. If Niels did it, how did he inflict such damage on himself? If someone else did, why leave the sole survivor alive, and why hide his shoes half a kilometre away? And the blonde man, red herring, or the ghost Finland never caught? Every answer spawns 2 new questions, which is why Bodom still sells newspapers whenever a new witness comes forward. None ever has. There's a new walking path, a memorial stone with the victims' names, and a metal grill where families laugh the same way those teenagers did in 1960. At dusk, the pines creak, and you realise the forest hasn't forgotten. Tour guides point across the water and drop their voices. Some nights, locals swear they see a single flashlight bobbing among the reeds. Probably just kids playing ghost hunters. Probably. Mila, Anya, Seppo, their lives stopped the moment the tent walls ripped open. Niels lived, but in a lot of ways, he stopped that morning too. Every June, someone leaves fresh flowers on the memorial stone. The card usually reads, "We still remember," because memory's all that's left when justice stalls and evidence rots in cardboard boxes. So tonight, when you crawl into your sleeping bag, zip it tight and think about the unsolved. Remember Lake Bodom. 3 teenagers never got there tomorrow. 1 man got too many. And somewhere in the dark between those 2 facts, the killer walks free. Can you solve the Lake Bodom murders?